The imperial throne room smelled like death and expensive perfume, a combination that would have been amusing if I wasn't currently watching my predecessor's remains being scraped off the marble floor. "How many does this make?" I asked, my tentacles coiling nervously around the datapad. 17, replied Koros, the head of Imperial Care. His scales had lost their sheen over the past month. 17 handlers in 32 days. I stared at the massive reinforced doors leading to the creature's enclosure. Somewhere beyond that titanium barrier was the Emperor's prized possession, his so-called beast. The thing had been a gift from the Valorian warlords, a gesture of peace after 3 centuries of conflict. What it actually was remained a mystery. Part biological weapon, part status symbol, entirely homicidal. "Tell me again why we don't just eliminate it?" I suggested, not for the first time. Koros's laugh was bitter. 3 of his eyes twitched. "The Emperor believes it's a test, a challenge, the greatest predator in 17 systems, and whoever can tame it proves themselves worthy of standing at his right hand. So we're sacrificing our best people for his entertainment." "Politics," Koros said, which was his answer for everything terrible in the universe. The doors hissed open. I felt my internal organs clench. This was it. My turn to either make history or become a cautionary tale. "Wait," I said, holding up a primary appendage. "What exactly killed Vexen?" Vexen had been Handler 16, a decorated military commander who had stared down battlecruisers without flinching. "Official report says cardiac failure," Koros muttered. "And unofficially? Fear. Pure, concentrated terror." The beast looked at him. Vexen's heart stopped. Fantastic, absolutely wonderful. I stepped through the doors into the enclosure. The space was enormous, roughly the size of a combat arena, which made sense, because that's exactly what it had been before being repurposed. The walls were scarred with claw marks, deep ones. Some of the gouges went through 6 inches of reinforced steel. And there, in the center of the enclosure, was the beast. It wasn't what I expected. The Valorian warlords had called it the perfect killer, an apex predator without equal. I had imagined something massive, covered in spikes and armor plating, dripping with venom. Instead, the creature was maybe 4 feet tall at its highest point. It had 4 limbs, like many species, but walked on all of them. Its body was covered in midnight black fur, except for a few patches of tan around the face and legs. The face itself was elongated, filled with teeth that caught the light when it snarled. Its ears were pointed, swiveling independently to track sounds. And its eyes, oh, its eyes were the worst part, amber and intelligent and completely, utterly cold. "Hello there," I said, keeping my voice steady. The translators built into the room would convert my words into various frequencies. Not that I expected the beast to understand language. It growled. The sound started low in its chest and built until I could feel it in my bones. Every instinct I had screamed at me to run. I didn't run. Running triggered prey drive. I had reviewed all 16 failures. 13 of them had run. "I'm Venn," I continued, taking one careful step forward. "I'm going to be your new handler. Not that you care about that." The beast's lips pulled back further. More teeth. So many teeth. "The Emperor thinks you're special," I said. "Personally, I think you're just angry and scared. Big difference." The growling stopped. The beast's head tilted slightly. Those amber eyes studied me with uncomfortable focus. "Yeah," I said it. "Scared. Because you're alone in a strange place, surrounded by things you don't understand, and everyone who comes near you treats you like a weapon instead of a living being." The beast's ears flicked forward, still watching me, still ready to attack, but listening. "Here's my theory," I said, taking another step. My legs were shaking, but I forced them steady. "The Valorians bred you for war, trained you to kill. Then they gave you to the Emperor like some kind of trophy. And now we're all standing around wondering why you're so aggressive. It's almost funny. Almost." A sound came from the beast, not a growl. Something else. Higher pitched. It lasted maybe 2 seconds. "Was that... Did you just laugh at me?" I asked. The beast made the sound again. Its tail, which I had barely noticed, moved back and forth once, not wagging exactly, but not completely still either. I had reviewed all the footage, all 16 handlers. None of them had made the beast vocalize like that. You think I'm funny? I said. Great. At least I'm dying for a good cause. I sat down, right there on the floor, cross-legged, or the equivalent with my physiology. Every manual, every training protocol, every piece of advice screamed that this was wrong. Never make yourself vulnerable. Never break eye contact. Never sit down. I did it anyway. The beast's ears flattened. It took a step back, then another step forward. Confused. I'm tired, I told it. I'm tired of watching good people die because nobody will admit that maybe, just maybe, the problem isn't you. Maybe the problem is us. Maybe we're the ones who need training. The beast moved closer. 5 feet away now. Then 4. Close enough that I could smell it. A mix of musk and something earthy that reminded me of the forests on my homeworld. You know what I think? I said quietly. I think you're lonely. I think you miss whatever home you came from. I think you're stuck in this cage, and everyone's afraid of you, and you don't know how to tell them that you're just as scared as they are. 3 feet away. The beast's breathing had changed. Slower. The aggressive posture had shifted to something else. Curiosity, maybe. I'm not going to hurt you, I said. I'm not going to force you to do anything. If you want me to leave, I'll leave. If you want me to stay, I'll stay. But I'm not going to treat you like a monster. The beast sat down. I nearly fell over in shock. It just sat right there, 3 feet away from me, still watching me with those intense amber eyes, but sitting. Well, I said, trying to keep my voice from shaking. This is new. The beast's tail moved again. A definite wag this time. Are you actually a good boy? I asked, the absurdity of the question hitting me as soon as I said it. The tail wagged harder. Oh my gods, I breathed. You're a good boy who's been treated like a monster. The beast made a sound. A whine, almost. Its ears were fully forward now, its body language completely different from moments before. Nobody ever called you that, did they? Nobody ever told you that you were good. I did something incredibly stupid. I reached out one tentacle, slowly, broadcasting every movement, giving the beast every chance to snap it off. The beast leaned forward, sniffed my tentacle. Then, very gently, touched its nose to the tip. Good boy, I whispered. You're such a good boy. The tail was a blur now. The beast's entire rear end was wiggling. It made happy sounds I had never heard before. Yips and whines and that strange laughing noise. This is insane, I said. Absolutely insane. The beast flopped onto its side, exposing its belly. A vulnerable position. A position of complete trust. I touched its chest. The fur was softer than I expected. Warm. I could feel its heartbeat, rapid and strong. What happened to you? I asked. What did they do to turn you into the Emperor's beast? The creature's eyes met mine, and for just a moment, I saw something that made my blood run cold. Intelligence. Deep, profound intelligence. This wasn't just an animal. This was something more. The doors behind me hissed open. Koros's voice echoed across the enclosure. Venn, get away from it. You've been in there for 20 minutes. We thought you were dead. The beast's head snapped toward the doors. The growling started again. Lips pulled back. Every muscle tensed. Wait, I called. Don't come closer. Close the doors. But close the doors now. The doors slammed shut. The beast's attention returned to me. Still tense but not attacking. They're gone, I said softly. Just you and me again. The beast's muscles relaxed incrementally. It looked at me with what I could only describe as frustration. You don't like them, I said. But you like me. Or at least, you tolerate me. The tail wagged once. Confirmation. This is going to be a problem, I said. The Emperor wants a demonstration. He wants to see you controlled, commanded. He wants proof that you're tamed. The beast made a sound that was definitely a laugh. Dark and sardonic. Yeah, I thought you'd find that funny, I said. So here's the situation. If I can't show progress, they're going to send in Handler 18 and Handler 19. And eventually, they're going to decide you're too dangerous and they're going to terminate you. The beast's ears flattened. It understood. Somehow, it understood every word. Unless, I said slowly, an idea forming. Unless we work together, unless I figure out what you need, and you help me not die, and we somehow convince the Emperor that you're tamed without actually taming you at all. The beast tilted its head, considering. It's manipulation, I admitted. Political theater. You'd have to play along, pretend to be obedient when people are watching. But when it's just us, you'd be yourself. The beast stood, walked in a circle, then sat back down directly in front of me and extended one paw. I had seen this gesture before. On the data files from the beast's homeworld, it was a greeting, a pact. I wrapped a tentacle around the paw. We shook. Partners then, I said. The beast's tail wagged. Right. Partners. This is either brilliant or the stupidest thing I've ever done. The doors opened again. Koro stood there with a medical team and 3 guards carrying shock weapons. Venn? He called. Are you injured? I'm fine, I said, standing slowly. The beast stood with me, staying close to my side. Better than fine, actually. Koros's scales went pale. It's right next to you. I know, it's not attacking. I know. How? I looked down at the beast. It looked back at me, and I swear, the creature winked. I asked nicely, I said. The walk back through the doors felt like walking on a tightrope over a reactor core. The beast followed me, staying precisely 3 feet behind, close enough to be connected, far enough to maintain its own space. The guards' weapons tracked its every movement, but nobody fired, probably because they were all too shocked to remember how to operate their triggers. Koros pulled me aside the moment the enclosure doors sealed behind us. What did you do? He hissed, all 3 eyes wide. What did you possibly do? In there? I talked to it. You talked to it. Everyone talks to it. No, I said. Everyone talks at it. There's a difference. Koros's tentacles flailed in frustration. Venn, 17 handlers. 17. Some of them were the finest animal behaviorists in the Empire. Some were military commanders who had broken wild creatures from a dozen worlds. And you're telling me the secret was just talking? The secret, I said carefully, was listening. To what? It doesn't speak, doesn't it? I pulled up my datapad, reviewing the audio recordings from the enclosure. Look at these vocalizations. Different pitches, different durations, different contexts. That's not random animal noise. That's communication. Koros studied the data. His scales shifted from pale to purple, which meant he was thinking. This would mean. It means the Valorians gave the Emperor something far more valuable and far more dangerous than a simple war beast. I finished. They gave him a sentient being. That's impossible. The Valorians wouldn't. The treaties explicitly forbid the enslavement of sentient species. Unless they found a loophole, I said. What if the species wasn't classified as sentient? What if it didn't have technology, didn't build cities, didn't fit the standard criteria? Then they could legally treat it as an animal, Koros said slowly. And gifting an exotic animal doesn't violate any treaties. Exactly. We stood there in silence, both of us realizing the magnitude of what we had stumbled into. If I was right, the Emperor's prized possession wasn't a beast at all. It was a person who had been ripped from their home, trafficked across the stars, and forced into captivity. And 17 people had died because nobody had bothered to figure that out. What do we do? Koros asked. Right now? Nothing. If we go to the Emperor with this, he'll either deny it or he'll bury the evidence, and the beast pays the price either way. So we pretend everything is normal. We pretend everything is normal, I agreed. I continue as handler. I build trust. And when the time is right, we figure out how to get the beast out of here. Koros's scales went through 6 colors in rapid succession. Fear, anger, resignation, determination, and 2 I couldn't identify. Finally, he settled on a deep blue that meant acceptance. You're asking me to commit treason, he said. I'm asking you to help me save a life. Same thing, in this case. He sighed, a whistling sound through his breathing slits. Fine. But Venn, if this goes wrong, we're both going to end up in cells next to the beast. Or worse. I know. And you're still going to do it. I am. He studied me for a long moment. Why? You don't know this creature. You've spent 20 minutes with it. Why risk everything? I thought about the intelligence in those amber eyes, the loneliness, the desperate attempt to connect with someone, anyone, who would see beyond the teeth and the claws. Because someone has to, I said. Koros nodded slowly. All right then. I'll start accessing the beast's origin files. See if I can find anything about its homeworld, its species. You focus on building that relationship. The Emperor wants a demonstration in 10 days. 10 days? My organs clenched again. That's not enough time to… I know. But the Council is pressuring him. They're saying the beast is a liability. Some are calling for immediate termination. Koros's voice dropped. You need to show progress, Venn. Real, visible progress. Or we're all out of time. I spent the next 3 days in that enclosure. Dawn to dusk, sometimes longer. The beast, who I had started privately calling Rax because he deserved an actual name, proved to be an incredibly quick study. On day 2, he learned to respond to basic commands. Sit, stay, come. But he only obeyed when we were alone. The moment someone else entered the enclosure, he became the snarling monster everyone expected. You're doing this on purpose. I accused him after Koros's latest visit ended with Rax nearly taking his arm off. Rax made the laughing sound. His tail wagged. You think this is funny? More tail wagging. We need to convince them you're tamed. That means you can't try to murder everyone who walks through that door. Rax's expression clearly said, watch me. Fine, I said. New approach. What if I told you that playing along might get you out of here? Would you behave then? The tail stopped wagging. Rax's ears perked up. He stared at me with laser focus. I'm working on something, I said quietly, glancing at the surveillance cameras. They were active, but no audio. Koros had made sure of that. But I need time. Which means you need to convince the Emperor that you're under control. Rax sat down, thinking. Then he extended his paw again. Deal? I asked. He placed his paw in my tentacle. Deal. Day 4 brought the first real test. The Emperor himself announced he would observe in the morning session. Not in person, thank the stars, but via live feed with half the Imperial Council watching. No pressure, I muttered to Rax as we waited for the signal. Rax pressed against my side. An gesture of support. Or possibly just trying to steal my body heat. With him, it was hard to tell. The doors opened. Instead of the usual single observer, 12 guards lined the walls. Koros stood in the center, looking like he might molt from stress. Handler Venn, Koros's voice boomed with false confidence. Demonstrate your progress. I took a breath. Rax, sit. Nothing. Rax, I repeated. Sit. Rax looked at me, then at the guards, then back at me. His expression clearly said, Really? In front of all these people? Please, I said quietly. Trust me. Something shifted in his eyes. He sat. The guards gasped. Koros nearly collapsed in relief. Rax, stay. I walked 10 feet away. Rax stayed, though every muscle in his body was tense. Come. He came. Slowly, watching the guards the entire time. But he came. Good boy, I said, keeping my voice calm despite wanting to scream in triumph. Such a good boy. His tail wagged, just a little, just enough. The observation session lasted 20 minutes. 20 minutes of basic commands, all of which Rax followed perfectly. He even allowed Koros to approach within 5 feet without attacking, though his growl made it clear that was the absolute limit. When the doors finally closed and we were alone again, Rax collapsed on the floor with a dramatic huff. I know, I said, sitting beside him. That was exhausting. You did amazing. He rolled over, demanding belly rubs. I complied, scratching the softer fur on his stomach while he made contented sounds. The Emperor is pleased, Koros said through the comm system. He wants a full demonstration in 6 days, public, with members of the council present, in person. My tentacles froze mid-scratch. In person? In person. This is good news, Venn. If you can pull this off, you'll be rewarded beyond your dreams. The Emperor is talking about making you head of the Imperial Menagerie. I looked down at Rax. He looked back at me. We both knew that 6 days wasn't enough time to escape. Whatever was going to happen at that demonstration would determine both our fates. Understood, I said. We'll be ready. Koros disconnected. I sat there in silence, my mind racing through possibilities. 6 days. 6 days to either cement this lie or find a way out. Rax placed his paw on my lap. When I looked at him, his amber eyes were steady, determined. We would figure this out. Together. The next morning brought unwelcome visitors. I arrived at the enclosure to find 3 council members already present, standing behind reinforced glass in the observation gallery. Their robes shimmered with rank insignias that probably cost more than my entire year's salary. Wonderful, I muttered, pressing my access code. An audience before breakfast. Rax was already awake, pacing the far side of the enclosure. He had spotted the council members immediately. His body language screamed tension. Easy, I said, stepping inside. They're just watching, probably hoping you'll eat me so they can tell the Emperor I told you so. Rax's ears flicked toward me, but his gaze stayed locked on the gallery. A low rumble built in his chest. Stop that, I said firmly. You promised to behave, remember? Besides, intimidating politicians is my job. The rumble stopped. Rax turned to face me fully, and I swear he rolled his eyes. Did you just… Never mind. I pulled out the training equipment Koros had provided. Hoops, platforms, obstacle courses, standard enrichment materials that doubled as proof of obedience. Let's give them a show they won't forget. What followed was probably the most nerve-wracking hour of my life. Rax performed flawlessly, leaping through hoops, navigating obstacles, responding to hand signals with precision that would make a military unit jealous. But there was something else happening beneath the performance. Every time he completed a task, he would glance at the gallery, not with fear or aggression, but with calculated assessment. He was studying them, learning their reactions, their body language, their weaknesses. He wasn't being tamed. He was gathering intelligence. The realization should have terrified me. Instead, I felt a surge of respect. Rax was playing a long game, and he was playing it brilliantly. After the council members left, looking smug and satisfied, I sat down heavily on one of the platforms. Rax immediately jumped up beside me, close enough that his warmth soaked through my suit. You're planning something, I said quietly, knowing the audio was still disabled. What are you thinking? Rax looked at me for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He pressed his nose against my datapad and whined. You want to see something? I pulled up the device. What? He pawed at the screen, surprisingly gentle. His claws tapped against specific sections until an image appeared. A star chart. You want to see maps? I asked, confused. Or wait, do you want to show me something? Rax's tail wagged frantically. Yes. I pulled up the galactic database, zooming out to show surrounding systems. Rax studied the display intently, then barked once, sharp and commanding. That one? I highlighted a system 3 sectors away. He barked again. Another system, closer to the galactic rim. We continued like this for 20 minutes. Rax selecting systems, me mapping them. A pattern emerged. A route, leading from our current location toward an uncharted region the Empire had designated as off-limits. That's where you're from, I breathed. That's your home. Rax's entire body vibrated with emotion. His eyes were bright, almost desperate. The Valorians must have raided the area, found your people, took you as a specimen. I felt sick. How many others? Rax held up his paw, extended his claws. All 5. Then repeated the gesture 4 times. 25? Horror washed through me. They took 25 of you? He nodded. Actually nodded. A gesture he had clearly learned from observing humanoid species. Where are the others? Rax's ears drooped. He made a low, mournful sound that needed no translation. Gone. Dead. He was the only survivor. Oh, Rax, I whispered, wrapping my tentacles around him. I'm so sorry. He leaned into the embrace, shaking. Not from fear but from grief he had been carrying alone for who knows how long. We stayed like that until the day cycle ended, and the enclosure lights dimmed to night mode. Finally, Rax pulled back and looked at me with renewed determination. He wanted to go home, and he wanted my help to get there. The demonstration is in 5 days, I said. After that, security will be insane. The Emperor will probably move you to a more secure facility, Maybe even off-world to one of his private estates. I thought frantically. We would need to move during the demonstration itself. Use the chaos as cover. Rax barked softly. Agreement. I'll need help, resources, a ship. My mind raced through possibilities and discarded most of them immediately. Koros. He's the only one I trust, and he has access to the Imperial docks. I spent that night in my quarters, barely sleeping, running through scenarios. Most ended with us dead or imprisoned. A few ended with us successfully escaping but stranded in space. Only one or two had any real chance of success. Those odds would have to be enough. The next morning, I found Koros in his office, surrounded by datapads and looking like he hadn't slept either. I found something, he said before I could speak, about the beast species. Or rather, about what the Valorians didn't report. He pulled up a classified file, one that made my skin prickle just looking at the security clearances required to access it. According to this, the Valorians encountered an unclassified percent species in Sector 447. Initial reports described them as primitive, non-technological, animal-level intelligence, perfect for exotic trade. Koros's scales darkened with anger. Except the survey team's personal logs tell a different story. They documented tool use, social structures, symbolic art, even what appeared to be burial practices. Proof of sentience, I said. Proof the Valorians deliberately suppressed. The official report was falsified. They knew exactly what they were doing when they classified the species as animals. Koros looked ill. This goes beyond treaty violations. This is genocide. How many? I asked, though I already knew the answer. The Valorians took samples from multiple family groups. 53 individuals total. Most died in transit or shortly after arrival at processing facilities. Current survivors, 1. Rax, alone. The last of his kind, at least the last taken from his world. I need your help, I said, making the decision. To get him out. To take him home. Koros was silent for so long I thought he might refuse. Then he brought up another file. Ship manifests. There's a cargo transport leaving the day after the demonstration. Medical supplies bound for the outer colonies. It passes within 2 light years of Sector 447. His eyes met mine. If someone were to stow aboard, and if that someone had falsified credentials suggesting they were escorting valuable Imperial property to a secure location, they might make it out of the system before anyone noticed. That would be treason, I said quietly. Yes, it would. Koros's expression was grim but resolved. I've served the Emperor for 30 years. I've watched him collect creatures from across the galaxy, treating sentient beings like trophies. I told myself it wasn't my place to question. That I was just following orders. He straightened. I'm done following orders that make me complicit in atrocities. You could lose everything. I've already lost my integrity. Everything else is negotiable. He pulled up detailed schematics. Here's what we need to do. The plan was insane. Brilliant, but insane. During the demonstration, Rax would perform perfectly, lulling everyone into a false sense of security. At the climax, when the Emperor himself would enter the enclosure to showcase his mastery over the perfect predator, we would trigger a carefully orchestrated technical failure. Lights would cut, security barriers would malfunction, and in the resulting chaos, Rax and I would disappear into the service tunnels that honeycombed beneath the Imperial complex. Koros would have a transport waiting at Dock 17. We would have maybe 10 minutes before someone realized the malfunction wasn't an accident. 10 minutes to get aboard, get clearance, and get off-world. What happens to you? I asked. I'll claim I was deceived. That you manipulated me. Forged the credentials. I'll be demoted, probably imprisoned for negligence, but I'll survive. Koros's smile was sad. I'm too old and too connected for them to do worse. You, on the other hand, need to make sure you're never caught. What about after? After we get Rax home, that cargo ship continues to the outer colonies. From there, you disappear. New identity, new life. The frontier territories don't ask many questions if you have useful skills. He handed me a data chip. Everything you'll need. Credentials, currency codes, contact information for people who can help. I stared at the chip. The weight of what we were planning settling over me like a shroud. This is really happening. Unless you've changed your mind? I thought about Rax. alone in that enclosure. The last survivor of a people stolen from their world and destroyed for profit. I thought about 17 dead handlers, killed because no one bothered to see the person behind the predator. No, I said. I haven't changed my mind. The next 4 days were a blur of preparation disguised as routine. I worked with Rax, daily, perfecting the demonstration routine while secretly teaching him the escape route. The service tunnels were mapped on my datapad, every turn and junction memorized. Rax learned faster than I thought possible. By day 3, he could navigate the route from memory, responding to hand signals that would guide him through the darkness when the lights cut. We also worked on something else. Fighting. If this goes wrong, I told him during a late-night session, we'll have guards between us and the dock. Armed guards. I can't fight them off alone. Rax's expression turned serious. He moved through a series of movements, demonstrating capabilities he had kept carefully hidden during all previous observations. Speed that blurred, strength that could rend metal, tactics that spoke of training and intelligence. You've been holding back, I said, awed and slightly terrified. He made the laughing sound. Of course he had been holding back. Showing his full capabilities would have gotten him dissected in a research lab. Smart boy, I muttered. Terrifying, but smart. The night before the demonstration, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my quarters, running through every possible scenario, every potential failure point. Around midnight, my comm chimed. Koros. Can't sleep either. His voice was rough. Too much thinking. The Emperor is bringing 40 council members tomorrow, plus guards, staff, media representatives. He's turning this into a spectacle. More witnesses to the technical failure, I said. More chaos to hide in, or more people to notice when things go wrong. Koros sighed. Venn, are you sure about this? Really sure? Because once we start, there's no going back. I thought about my answer carefully. I've never been sure about anything in my life, but I'm doing it anyway. Why? Honestly, why risk everything for a creature you barely know? Because he's not a creature, I said simply. He's a person. And persons don't deserve to die in cages for someone else's entertainment. Koros was quiet for a moment. You're either the most noble being I've ever met, or the most foolish. Probably both. Probably. He agreed. Get some rest, Venn. Tomorrow changes everything. The demonstration day arrived with perfect weather, bright sunlight, clear skies. The kind of day the Emperor loved for public events. The throne room had been converted into a proper arena, with seating for the council members and a central performance space where Rax would showcase his training. I arrived early, wanting time alone with Rax before the crowds descended. He was pacing when I entered, anxious energy radiating from every movement. Today's the day, I said quietly. Are you ready? He stopped pacing and looked at me, nodded once. Ready. Remember, we follow the routine exactly until I give the signal. The phrase is, magnificent specimen. When you hear that, we move. Rax's ears perked forward. Understanding. If we get separated, you follow the tunnel route. To Dock 17. Don't wait for me, don't look back. Just run. He made a disagreeable sound, pressing against my side. I mean it, Rax. If something happens to me, you save yourself. Promise me. He refused to acknowledge the request, instead butting his head against my shoulder insistently. Stubborn creature, I muttered, scratching behind his ears. Fine. We stick together. But if this goes wrong, it won't, Koros said, entering the enclosure. He looked official in his ceremonial robes, every inch the proper imperial administrator. Only his eyes betrayed his nerves. The technical team is in place. The transport is fueled and ready. Your credentials are loaded into the system. He handed me a small device. Emergency comm. If you need to abort, press this, and I'll trigger the failure early. Thank you, I said, for everything. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when you're safely in the outer territories. He glanced at Rax. Take care of him. He's important. Rax made a soft sound, almost like acknowledgement. The crowds began arriving. Council members in their finest robes, guards in polished armor, media drones hovering to capture every angle, the throne room filled with chatter and excitement. Everyone wanted to see the legendary beast finally tamed. The Emperor arrived last. Naturally, he swept in with his usual entourage, settling onto his throne with practiced grace. His voice boomed across the arena. Citizens of the Empire, today you witness history, the perfect predator, brought to heel through the brilliance of Imperial training methods. I resisted the urge to point out that the so-called Imperial training methods consisted of me sitting on the floor and asking nicely, "Handler Venn," the Emperor continued, "bring forth the beast." This was it. No turning back now. I signaled to Rax. He followed me into the arena, moving with perfect obedience. The crowd gasped at his appearance. Even knowing he was supposedly tamed, the sight of him still triggered primal fear responses. We began the routine. Rax leaped through hoops, navigated obstacles, responded to commands with flawless precision. The crowd's fear gradually shifted to amazement, then to appreciation. By the 20-minute mark, they were applauding each trick. The Emperor stood, clearly pleased. Magnificent. Handler Venn, you have achieved what 17 others could not. You have proven the superiority of Imperial methods. I kept my expression neutral, waiting. Not yet. The signal phrase hadn't been spoken. As a final demonstration, the Emperor announced, I myself shall enter the arena. I shall command the beast directly, proving that any citizen of the Empire can master even the most dangerous creature. No, that wasn't supposed to happen. The Emperor wasn't supposed to enter until after the technical failure. If he came in now, if he was in the arena when the lights cut, I caught Koros's eye across the room. He looked as panicked as I felt. This wasn't the plan. The Emperor descended from his throne, moving toward the arena entrance. Guards moved to accompany him, but he waved them off. Unnecessary. The beast is tamed. Rax tensed beside me. His eyes tracked the Emperor's approach with predatory focus. I could feel the coiled violence in his muscles, barely restrained. Easy, I whispered. Not yet. Wait. The Emperor entered the arena. Up close, he was smaller than he appeared on his throne, but his arrogance filled the space. He looked at Rax with the expression of someone admiring a new possession. What a magnificent specimen, the Emperor said, reaching toward Rax's head. The signal. He had just given the signal. Everything happened at once. The lights cut. Emergency backups failed to engage. The arena plunged into darkness. Screams erupted from the crowd. Guards shouted orders. Chaos exploded across the throne room. Now. I grabbed Rax's collar. Move. We ran. Not toward the service tunnels as planned, but deeper into the arena. Because the Emperor was blocking our exit route, and if we ran past him in the dark, his guards would shoot first and ask questions never. This way. I veered left, toward a maintenance access I had marked as a backup route. Rax stayed glued to my side, his night vision far superior to mine. Behind us, the Emperor's voice rose above the chaos. Seize them. The beast has attacked. Lock down the complex. I didn't attack anyone. I shouted back. Not that anyone was listening. We hit the maintenance access at full speed. I slammed my palm against the emergency release, praying Koros's override codes were as good as he claimed. The panel blinked green. The door opened. We tumbled through into a narrow service corridor. Red emergency lights provided barely enough illumination to navigate by. Dock 17. I panted, pulling up my datapad. East Wing, Sublevel 3. We have maybe 5 minutes before they seal all exits. Rax barked once. Lead the way. We ran through corridors I had only seen on maps, past pipes and conduits and equipment I couldn't name. Twice, we had to detour around maintenance crews who were responding to the power failure. Once we nearly collided with a security team, but Rax's low warning growl gave me just enough time to pull us into a side passage. My comm chirped. Koros. Venn. What happened? The Emperor wasn't supposed to enter early. I noticed. I gasped, jumping over a bundle of cables. Where are the guards? Everywhere. They've activated internal security protocols. All docks are being locked down. His voice rose in panic. You have maybe 2 minutes. We're close. I could see the signs now, pointing toward the docking levels. Dock 17. Which bay? Bay 4. The transport captain knows you're coming. She'll wait as long as she can. We burst through a door into the main docking corridor. Open space, exposed. Guards were already moving to secure the area. There! One shouted, pointing at us. the handler, and the beast. Run. I didn't need to tell Rax twice. We sprinted down the corridor, guards shouting behind us, the sound of weapons charging filling the air. Bay 4. Bay 3. Bay 2. Bay 1. Wait. We had passed it. Back. I skidded to a halt, nearly falling. The bays were numbered backwards on this level. Bay 4 was behind us. The guards were closing in. 20 feet. 15. Rax turned to face them, placed himself between me and the approaching threat. His growl was the most terrifying sound I had ever heard. Rax, no. We run together, remember? He didn't move. Protecting me. Buying time. Stand down. The lead guard shouted. Both of you. There's nowhere to go. He was right. The bay entrance was 60 feet away. The guards were 30 feet away. We couldn't outrun them. Unless… Rax, I said quietly. How far can you jump? His ears perked. He glanced at the bay entrance, calculating. Can you make it if I throw you? He looked at me like I was insane, which, fair. Trust me, I said. One last crazy plan. I wrapped my strongest tentacles around his midsection. Rax tensed, understanding what I was attempting. On 3. 1, 2, 3. I threw him with every ounce of strength I possessed. Rax flew through the air, a black missile aimed at the bay entrance. He hit the ground running, momentum carrying him forward, claws scrabbling for purchase. He was going to make it. I wasn't. The guards reached me. Hands grabbed my tentacles, weapons pressed against my back. Don't move. You're under arrest for… The explosion cut off whatever charge they were about to list. The bay entrance erupted in fire and smoke. Not real explosives. Flash charges. Non-lethal but extremely disorienting. Koros. He must have triggered the distraction manually. The guard stumbled back, blinded and confused. I wrenched free and ran. Through the smoke. Through the bay entrance. Into Bay 4 where a cargo transport was already powering up for departure. Rax was at the loading ramp, barking frantically. The ramp was closing. Wait! I screamed at the pilot. Wait! The ramp slowed. Just enough. I threw myself forward, tentacles extended, catching the edge as it rose. Rax grabbed my uniform in his teeth, pulling with desperate strength. We tumbled into the cargo hold together as the ramp sealed shut. The transport's engines roared. Through the bay windows, I could see guards pouring in, weapons raised, but they were too late. The transport lifted off. We were airborne. We had done it. I lay on the cargo hold floor, gasping for air, my entire body shaking with adrenaline. Rax collapsed beside me, equally exhausted. That, I wheezed, was the stupidest thing I have ever done. Rax made the laughing sound. Don't you laugh at me. We almost died. Multiple times. More laughing. His tail wagged against the floor. A door opened. A woman stepped through, middle-aged with the weathered look of someone who had spent decades in space. Which one of you is Venn? That would be me. I raised a tentacle weakly. Captain Tella. Koros paid me very well to not ask questions about my passengers. She studied Rax with professional interest. That's the Emperor's beast? Looks smaller in person. He's full of surprises, I said. I'll bet. Well, welcome aboard the Horizon's Edge. We're bound for the outer colonies, with a slight detour near Sector 447 as requested. Trip takes about 3 weeks. My crew knows to leave you alone, and I'd appreciate it if you return the favor. Deal. Good. There's a cabin set up for you on the lower deck. Food synthesizer, basic amenities. Don't break anything, and we'll get along fine. She turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, I think what you did was brave. Stupid but brave. I get that a lot, I muttered. She left, sealing the door behind her. I looked at Rax. He looked at me. We're fugitives now, I said. Criminals. Traitors to the Empire. Rax pressed his nose against my shoulder. His tail wagged. You're welcome, I said, scratching his ears. Now let's get you home. 3 weeks in space gave us time to decompress, to process everything that had happened. I learned more about Rax during those weeks than I had thought possible. He was remarkably expressive once freed from the need to hide his intelligence. He learned to use the communication board I set up, pressing symbols to convey complex ideas. His people were called the Kethril. They lived in forest territories, organized in family groups, with rich cultural traditions passed down through generations. They used tools, created art, had names and stories and histories. And the Valorians had destroyed all of it. Rax was traveling home, but he would find it empty. His family group was gone. The others taken with him were dead. He would be alone. "I'm sorry," I told him one night as we watched the stars blur past through the observation port. "I'm sorry I can't give you back what was stolen." Rax pressed against me. Warm and solid and alive. We would figure it out. Together. On day 21, the horizon's edge dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Sector 447. Captain Tella gave us use of a shuttle, pre-programmed with coordinates to Rax's homeworld. "This is as far as I go," she said. "The shuttle has enough fuel to get you planet-side and back to the nearest way station if you need it. After that, you're on your own." "Thank you," I said. "For everything. Don't thank me. Thank Koros. That old fool risked everything to make this happen." She paused. "I heard through back channels that he was arrested. Treason charges. He'll be imprisoned for years." My heart sank. He knew that would happen. "Yeah, he did it anyway." She looked at Rax. "Must be some special creature to inspire that kind of loyalty." "He is," I said quietly. "He really is." The shuttle ride to the surface was silent. Rax pressed against the viewport, watching his world grow larger. I could feel the tension in his body, anticipation mixed with grief. The coordinates led us to a forested region, dense with vegetation I couldn't name. The shuttle landed in a clearing. Rax was out the door before the engines fully powered down. I followed more slowly, giving him space. He ran through the forest, nose to the ground, following trails only he could detect. I heard him howl. The sound echoed through the trees, lonely and haunting. No answer came. We searched for 3 days. We found the remains of the Kethril settlement. Scattered tools. Art carved into tree bark. A central gathering space with stones arranged in meaningful patterns. But no Kethril. The Valorians had been thorough. On the third night, Rax sat in that gathering space and howled at the moons. I sat with him, offering what comfort I could. "I know it's not enough," I said. "I know I can't replace what you lost. But you're not alone, Rax. You'll never be alone again." He leaned against me. We sat there until dawn, 2 survivors mourning people destroyed by greed and cruelty. As the sun rose, Rax stood. He moved through the settlement, touching trees, stones, places that held meaning. Then he came back to me and pressed something into my tentacle. A carved piece of wood. Primitive but beautiful. The symbol of his family group. "You want me to keep this?" I asked. He nodded. Then he pointed to the shuttle. "Time to go. Are you sure? This is your home. We could stay. Build something new here." He shook his head, pushed me toward the shuttle. Insistent. I understood then. This place held too much pain. Too many ghosts. Rax didn't want to stay in a graveyard. He wanted to live. We left that world together, carrying the memory of the Kethril but not imprisoned by it. The shuttle took us to the nearest way station in the frontier territories. From there, using Koros's credentials and contacts, we disappeared into the vast network of colony worlds, where questions weren't asked and pasts didn't matter. I found work as a xenobiologist on a research station. Rax, officially listed as my research partner, helped with fieldwork. The other researchers initially kept their distance, wary of his appearance. But gradually, they learned what I had learned. That Rax was brilliant, loyal, and had a wicked sense of humor. He was family. 2 years after our escape, I received an encrypted message. The signature was Koros. Venn. If you're reading this, the automated system worked. I've been released from prison. Pardons for good behavior, they called it, though I suspect someone in the council felt guilty about their complicity in the Beast affair. The Empire still hunts for you both, but interest has waned. You're officially dead according to Imperial records. Convenient accidents happen. I've retired to a colony world near the rim. Quiet life. Good weather. If you're ever in Sector 891, Dock 4, Bay 17, I've always got room for old friends. Both of you. Tell the good boy I said hello. Stay safe. Stay hidden. And Venn, thank you for reminding an old administrator that some things matter more than orders. Koros. I showed the message to Rax. His tail wagged. What do you think? I asked. Want a visit? He barked. Once. Sharp and happy. Sector 891 it is then. We took a transport heading rimward, toward new adventures and old friends. As the stars blurred past, Rax curled up beside me, content. The Emperor's beast was gone. In his place was simply Rax. A person who had survived the impossible, found freedom against all odds, and discovered that family wasn't about blood or species. It was about choice, and we had chosen each other.